This clip has no intro or anything. The things I've read, heard, and seen in the last 2 days have shocked me in a way I've never experienced before. In the past, we used to hear about celebrities and politicians who eat children and sacrifice them, and we'd say, man, we are adults, this is unbelievable. What politician is known to kill a child and drink their blood? Tell a sane person something they can believe. But forget that wisdom from now on. Tell me the most unbelievable thing and I'll believe you, because the reality is worse than anything the greatest horror story writer could invent. Politicians torturing and eating children, British celebrities and princes, caught, in audio and video, the president of the US himself, celebrities and rappers, emails exposed Elon Musk, who was acting innocent all the time. With so many things coming out, I don't know where to start. This is the first time in my life I'm making a clip and I don't know where to start or what to talk about, or the scandal of the century, you know? Also, we might find out that Epstein could be alive today through his Fortnite account. Things that are hard to believe. Today I'm telling you, we are talking about the one who was cursed until Judgment Day and his rival, the cursed Diddy. I assume none of you are unfamiliar with the story of Epstein. Since 2019, it's been the biggest story on YouTube. I made 2 clips about him 2 years ago for those who want to hear his story in detail, but I'll repeat it for you very briefly and without details. If you know his full story and want to get into the new files, skip to the next minute. Epstein was a businessman. No one knows exactly where his money came from. He was a math teacher without a teaching degree, then suddenly got hired at an investment firm. Later, he left and founded his own company, and after that, he bought an island called St. James for $8 million in 1998. Where did he get all that money? No one knows. But even before buying the island, the first accusations against him started in 1996. A girl named Maria Farmer, a farm worker who worked for Epstein, went to the FBI and said that Epstein filmed her younger sister without clothes, and that he also had videos of young girls whose ages didn't reach 12 years old. She also said he asked her to film the young girls in the swimming pool and threatened her with consequences if she didn't. What did the FBI do after the girl came and complained to them? Nothing. They completely ignored the matter as if she hadn't spoken. What would make the FBI ignore a major accusation like that? You'll find out in a bit. 2 years later, Epstein bought his private island, Little St. James, which later became known as Epstein Island. He also bought the larger island next to it called Greater St. James, but Bahamian officials didn't let him build on it at first because they heard about the things he was doing on the small island. Epstein said about this island that it was his favorite place to live, and he used to say he bought it to be away from the noise of the cities and to be a place where he could rest. But he wasn't talking about the kind of rest I expected, because in 2005, the Palm Beach police in Florida started investigating accusations against Epstein from a 14-year-old girl. This girl was studying at a high school called Royal Palm Beach, and one day her friend came to her and said, "I have a small job for you where you can make money. Come with me to an old man's house in the neighborhood, give him a massage, and you'll get $300. Indeed, that girl went to Epstein's house, and then he harassed and raped her. He also offered her that if she brought other girls, she'd get another $300. The girl immediately complained to her mother, and her mother reported it to the police. The police began investigating the matter, conducting interviews with all the children, and they discovered that the issue was much larger than just one girl. In the Palm Beach neighborhood alone, they were able to reach 40 children who went to Epstein's house and gave massages to other figures in his mansion. The police investigated the matter secretly for a whole year, planted cameras around the house, and saw everything for themselves. In 2006, they filed a case against Epstein and caught him. But surely you'd say, since they caught him in 2006 with strong accusations from 40 girls, at the very least he'd get life in prison. That's the minimum. If you harass one child, you get 25 years, which is considered life. What about 40 children? That definitely means execution. But you won't believe what they sentenced him to. Epstein's lawyer was someone named Alan Dershowitz, okay? This Jewish lawyer is the biggest defender of Israel in America and has had relations for decades with Netanyahu. And the prosecutor who was supposed to try Epstein was someone named Alexander Acosta. This Alexander, instead of pursuing these charges, which he wouldn't even have had to work hard for because he had all the evidence on earth, videos, photos, and testimonies of 40 victims, decided to make something called a non-prosecution agreement with Epstein. This agreement gave Epstein immunity from federal prosecution in Florida. This meant the FBI would stop investigating any case against Epstein. And not just him, but every other person involved in this case whose names were mentioned, and every other figure whose name wasn't mentioned. They told him, "We just want you to do something simple, plead guilty to 2 minor charges so no one says we didn't do anything, and then we'll let you go." Indeed, Epstein said, "I am guilty of the charge of solicitation of prostitution," and they decided to sentence him to 18 months in prison. Someone might say, well, at least he spent 18 months in jail, even if he wasn't fully sentenced. If only. Part of this agreement with Epstein was that he stays in prison for 12 hours a day, but for only 6 days a week, meaning like a normal work shift. On top of that, he had to leave from prison on the weekends to go to parties. And he wasn't staying in a normal prison, he was staying in a complex built for the wealthy, and he had his private driver who would take him to prison in a Bentley. In that prison, he had his private office and televisions to watch movies before they were even released. Can you comprehend what happened in 2006? 40 children complained about him, and the police had all the evidence, videos, and witnesses, but they decided not to prosecute him and gave him this pathetic agreement that let him live a better life than most people. If anyone stole a can of Red Bull in Palm Beach, which is the richest neighborhood in Florida, they'd put him in a real prison for a whole year, and if he dropped the soap in that prison, Diddy would seize the opportunity. So how does a person who raped 40 children get a pathetic punishment like that? You'll find out in a bit. Anyway, in 2018, a newspaper called the Miami Herald published its investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. The journalist who wrote the article interviewed 80 victims of Epstein and wrote a detailed investigation and published it. On the same day the article was published, all hell broke loose, because before this article, no one knew anything about Epstein or his crimes except very few people. But overnight, he became the talk of all of America. And the FBI was now really in trouble because the whole world knew about the deal of the century they made with Epstein. This time they were forced to reopen another investigation and catch him. Indeed, he was caught in 2019, and this time the charges were real. All of them, child abduction, human trafficking, and many other charges. They decided to put him in the most guarded prison in the world, with cameras in every cell. But suddenly, by God's will, as if by magic, Epstein managed to commit suicide in the most camera-filled prison in the world. And magically, the cameras turned off during the hour he decided to commit suicide, and they only turned off in the wing where he decided to commit suicide. Also, the guards decided to sleep during the hour he committed suicide. But I'm sure it's just coincidences. They didn't kill him because he said in emails that he was ready to testify against everyone who was with him, including prime ministers, princes, athletes, artists, most of the aristocratic class. What do you think of that word? And the disaster is that we all expected Epstein was killed in prison, but from what came out in the emails, there's a possibility he didn't die at all. There's a possibility he escaped prison, went somewhere else, and faked his death. But we'll get into all of that. Anyway, one of the things that helped Trump win the election most was that he promised to release the Epstein files as soon as he became president. But after he became president, he started to deny the subject. He began saying the Epstein files aren't a real thing at all, something invented by the Democrats, and we just need to forget the subject and let bygones be bygones. Later, a journalist asked him and said, "Okay, when are you going to release the Epstein files?" He told her, "Shut up, you pig." A disgusting word. Anyway, he started to ignore the subject. After great pressure from the people, he spoke to the U.S. Department of Justice to release the files. Indeed, they called right-wing celebrities to the White House and gave them files, and they sat there taking pictures with them in front of the cameras and said that the truth has finally appeared and now everything will be spread. Later, on the same day, we found out that the files in their hands were all nonsense that had been published for years and contained nothing new, to the point that they were covering in black parts of files that were already published long ago. All they were doing was covering up the matter more. After great public pressure and after a new law from Congress mandating the government to release the full Epstein files, they decided to release 200,000 files, also all nonsense, containing nothing except pictures of Bill Clinton, who was known from the start to be one of Epstein's buddies. Bill Clinton, who was the president of the US long ago, was kicked out of the White House because they caught him cheating on his wife with someone else in the Oval Office. This is someone who has lost it. If he did that in the White House, what do you expect him to do in the Black House? He doesn't care about anything. Yesterday, he was looking at the public investigation in front of the cameras for himself and everyone involved. He doesn't care about anything, he's totally lost it. But then suddenly, and for an unannounced reason, the US Department of Justice decided 2 days ago to publish Epstein's files, which also aren't complete, but they contain hair-raising details and implicate all the celebrities and politicians. The Department of Justice did everything possible so these files wouldn't come out. They did everything possible so no one would know these details about the celebrities and politicians. But suddenly they released all of this. These files say that Epstein was an intelligence agent for the Mossad, filming celebrities and politicians in compromising positions so he could have things to blackmail them with later. The reason for releasing the files at this specific timing, they say, is a warning from Israel to Trump because he refused to strike Iran in recent days. This is what many tweets say, and honestly, I see it as a realistic and believable theory. It's not a confirmed thing, just a theory. Because the Department of Justice did everything possible so the files wouldn't come out. They literally broke the law so they wouldn't come out. Congress passed a law mandating the US Department of Justice to release the full files. Despite that, they only released 200,000 files and ignored the rest. They broke the law so they wouldn't come out in full. So the fact that they came out suddenly like this is strange. Even though they aren't complete, it's still strange, because one of the files that came out 2 days ago says the FBI had a reliable human source who said that Trump is compromised by Israel, and there are Israeli entities holding things against him to blackmail him. So the subject that Israel decided to release these files to warn Trump and force him to strike Iran is a realistic theory, but it's not proven. But let's talk about the proven things that came out in the emails. From here, the clip will get crazy. I don't advise anyone sensitive to continue this part of the clip because it contains hair-raising details, honestly. We'll start with the light things first, the first of which is Elon Musk. Elon Musk all this time was playing the role of the one standing with the truth. All the time he was telling people that the Epstein files must come out, and he was playing the role of the honest, trustworthy man, okay? Even when he fought with Trump, he wrote a tweet saying that Trump doesn't want to release the Epstein files because he's in them. He also said many times that he never went to the island and it's impossible for him to go. And indeed, his words are correct, he didn't go to the island. But he didn't go to the island because no one wanted him on that island. He was begging in emails, saying please, please, I want to go to the island. Let me know when the craziest party on the island will be so I can come. Hey Jeffrey, when will you invite me to the island? And in every email, Epstein would brush him off, okay, don't worry, I'll see and get back to you, and he wouldn't get back to him. Once he'd tell him, actually, I'm traveling right now, I can't, and once he'd say, okay, I'll come pick you up for one day, and then he'd bail on him. Imagine being such a loser and obnoxious that even the biggest blackmailer in the world doesn't want to get close to you, even though you're the richest man in the world. If a Muslim at the end of the world stole juice from a grocery store, Elon would post a tweet about it and talk about it immediately. His account on Twitter consists of insulting and belittling Muslims. But since the new Epstein files came out, he suddenly remembered he's a businessman and started tweeting about technology and rockets and acting crazy, thinking we'll forget. He thinks these are the only rockets he was trying to play with. But after the pressure increased, he started to reply and also say that he never went to the island and anyone who committed a crime there must be caught and I don't know what. But he forgot to reply to the fact that he didn't go to the island because he was rejected, no one wanted him there. Obnoxious to the point that no one wants to blackmail him at all. What a loser, man. Imagine a child predator evading you because you're obnoxious. But this is nothing compared to the rest. It's not your time either, because Prince Andrew, the prince of the British royal family, a picture of him was spread while he was photographed on top of a young girl. No one knows if she was unconscious or dead. But this is nothing compared to the next file. Because there's an email saying that Prince Andrew in the 90s brought a girl through Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's girlfriend, and then he tortured and killed that girl. This prince, since last year, the British royal family decided to strip him of all titles and confiscate all his properties. Not because he's a devil, no, but because he exposed them in front of people and ruined their reputation, nothing more. Because he killed this girl in the 90s, and none of them spoke, and it's impossible they didn't know about it through British intelligence. Nothing is hidden from them. They knew about all of Andrew's crimes, but they didn't care because the most important thing to them was the reputation of the royal family. As soon as he ruined their reputation, they kicked him out. But the funniest thing in the files that came out, a Yemeni businessman sent an email to Epstein and said, "Listen, I don't want children, I don't want girls. I want us to make a new global product called cat juice. His only dream was to make cat a global drink like Red Bull. This is the only person Epstein couldn't get anything on. Whenever they talked to him about girls and children, he'd say, "Okay, what do you think about the idea of cat juice?" Concentrating on his goal more than anyone else I've ever come across. Also, in one of the emails, Epstein requested all types of girls except black girls. Anything except black ones, according to him. This email made the Kowal, black people, happy in an unnatural way. It's the first time I see people happy about something racist. They say there isn't a single black victim on the whole of Epstein Island because Epstein hates black people. But who didn't have racism against anyone and loved everyone? Diddy. Diddy didn't refuse anyone. The most person who respected human rights, black, white, yellow, orange, old, young, he didn't care. He treated everyone equally and with full justice. I found someone who asked me a stupid question a few days ago. He said to me, "Barry, who is the GOAT, greatest of all time? Diddy or Epstein?" I told him this subject isn't a joke, it's no longer a place for jokes. But I'll answer that question on Instagram today. And who was also on the island? Even though this is old news, Stephen Hawking. The paralyzed scientist, completely disabled, can't talk, can't move, speaks through a microphone connected to a keyboard linked to a screen with speakers. This guy especially, I don't know what his situation is exactly because if a Windows update comes, his whole plan gets ruined. But they tell you as soon as he reaches the island, his chair becomes 700 horsepower, okay? Mustang GT 500. And they photographed him in 1,000 pictures sitting with girls and holding a full juice next to the girls, while in front of us he acts paralyzed. And he appears in other pictures swimming in Epstein's hole. In Epstein's house, there was a hole that drops you into the ocean. No normal human being would do something like that in his house. And it's absolutely impossible that he didn't have other uses for that hole, like throwing out the young girls he cuts up after he's finished with them. One of the accusations in these files says that the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, a man in Florida in 2018, and one of the Supreme Court judges in America, someone named Clarence Thomas, is accused of something involving a 4-year-old child. And President Trump himself is accused of things so bad I can't say them. This clip has been ready for a few days. I tried to find a way to say the things he's accused of, but I didn't know how to say it. I don't know how to express it in a way that lets me say these words in front of people. But they are very bad things and don't make sense. This clip has been ready for a few days, but I expected it would be blocked because of the Trump part, so I won't talk about it. But the least accusation Trump is accused of is that he tortured and killed children, and he was the one who actually used to bring girls to Epstein through the modeling agency he had. Trump had a program where he brought in models and had them compete for who was the most beautiful long ago. So there's a part in these files, the things Trump used to do in that program, that he would send young girls to Epstein. And Epstein himself, in one of his emails, said that he met many bad people but he had never met a person as bad as Trump, and that there isn't a shred of good in his whole body. Imagine the biggest child predator saying that about you. They asked Trump the day before yesterday, "What do you think of the accusations coming out against you in the Epstein files?" He said, "Look, nobody wants to talk about Epstein anymore, people are bored of this story. We need to move on from this subject and talk about more important things." What are the more important things he wants people to talk about? Boom, he started posting clips of Obama and his wife as dancing monkeys. These are the important things to talk about. Take it from me. Due to the intensity of the pressure on Trump from the Epstein files, I expect he will start a war with Iran soon. Literally, that's the only way out. There is no other exit. He'll drop bombs on Iran so people get distracted from the talk being said in these files. Trump's fans were the people most demanding these files because they thought they would expose the Democrats and they'd be done for. But when the files came out, they discovered that the majority of those in the files are Republicans and Israelis. There are no Democrats except Bill Clinton and Bill Gates and a few others. So when these files came out and they found that the biggest accused are Republicans, they got in trouble. And some famous anchors like Kevin O'Leary, who was one of the people most demanding the Epstein files come out, as soon as they came out and he found that Trump was the most mentioned in them, he appeared in an interview and started saying, "Look, nobody cares about the Epstein files and all this attention isn't real, it's just bots. They are trying to escape in any way." And most of them started saying that the files are forged anyway. But what isn't forged is that Bill Gates is one of the most involved in these files. He committed heinous acts with a Russian model on the island. And this model passed a sexual disease to him, after which he sent an email to Epstein saying, "Please, get me medicine for the disease so I don't pass it to my wife." It's worth noting that Melinda, Bill's wife, divorced him in 2021 and took half his fortune. She took $76 billion. What did she do with that money? Immediately, she started distributing it to child rights organizations and building universities in Africa. A bit more and she'll distribute it all. I remember when they divorced, the comments were saying, surely she married him for his money. In the end, she's taking his money. At that time, I said this is not the look of someone who married him for money. Those who marry you for money, the malice shows in their eyes, like Hakimi's wife, whom I discovered later why Hakimi is considered one of the best players in the world. From his look, it's clear he knew she was malicious, but he is more malicious than her. The legend Hakimi. Anyway, in one of the emails, Bill Gates, Epstein, and someone named Barry were talking about a minor, and nobody tried a joke, "It's not me." Anyway, while they were talking about this minor, Bill Gates suddenly said, "How can we get rid of the poor all at once, and when can I call you to talk about the subject?" By God, do these words come out of normal people? When was the last time you called your buddy and said, "Now, how do we get rid of all the poor?" Literally the devils of the earth. We'll delve into this story later. One of the crazy things that came out in these files is that Epstein used to wear a Joker mask while with the children, and they would participate in that. This person, whose name was mentioned in the emails. The strange thing is that the biggest people on earth, their names were mentioned. Like Trump, Elon Musk, Bill Gates. If those names were mentioned, who has authority so strong that his name isn't mentioned even though the name of the President of America himself is there? But I have a theory, if you look through all the files, you won't find the name Netanyahu. That's a strange thing, even though the former Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, was filmed in 4K entering Epstein's mansion in New York, wearing a mask so no one would recognize him. And not just that, he was living in his mansion for a long time and was one of Epstein's closest buddies. And in one of the emails Epstein sent to Ehud Barak, Epstein said to Barak, "You have to tell people that I don't work for the Mossad." Ehud Barak said to him, "Do you mean me or you?" Epstein replied and said, "No, I mean me." Meaning, you tell people that I don't work for the Mossad. So in short, Epstein is a Zionist Israeli Mossad agent. And that's not a good thing. But people are now certain of this thing that everyone knew but no one had been able to confirm yet, that Netanyahu is the one holding the strings of this thing. The greatest son of Abi ****** is the one supervising whose name comes out and whose name doesn't. But the strange thing is the unnatural stupidity happening in the media. They think they're still in 2010 and no one will search for the truth themselves. For example, the British Daily Mail published a news story with the title that Epstein was a Russian KGB agent, meaning Russian intelligence agencies. What's their evidence for this? That Epstein used to bring some girls from Russia. They're playing us for fools to our faces, right? As if Epstein himself hadn't admitted he was a Mossad agent. As if there aren't pictures of Epstein's clothes in the files, half of which are Israeli army clothes. As if one of his dearest friends wasn't the Israeli Prime Minister himself. As if the President of Israel himself hadn't visited the island. This thing teaches you how the media works. They don't care about the truth, they have their own truth that they manufacture themselves and want you to believe. There's no such thing as a trusted newspaper or a trusted channel. Everyone proceeds according to their interests or according to the CDs, blackmail material, held against them. Also, in the emails, Ghislaine Maxwell, who is Epstein's lover and his partner in Vice, wrote eloquent poetry. It's not eloquent, her poetry is weak, honestly. Anyway, she says in it that she dreams of the year 2032, a year after the death and extinction of all Arabs. She says that in that year, she'll tell her son that here there were towers that the Arabs knocked down, meaning the New York Towers, and her son will ask her, "Mom, what are Arabs?" But I was enjoying myself while reading her poetry and watching her in her cell. She's like a dog, going back and forth, having nothing to do but sit in this cell and walk in it. Her toilet is next to her bed. She's living the life of a dog. Dogs live better than that. But the disaster is that a month ago, people were angry at the Trump government and said, "Why haven't the files come out yet?" At that time, Maxwell came out through her lawyer and said, "I am ready to appear in an investigation in front of people and reveal everything." People said, "Great, there's nothing better than this, let her talk." But what did the Department of Justice do? They immediately went to Maxwell and let her talk in a locked room without cameras, with an investigator appointed by Trump. And suddenly they decided to take her from that prison and put her in a 5-star prison. Now she has televisions in that prison, and her private dog. Trump every 2 days is hinting that he'll give her a pardon. Just to remind you, this girl is worse than Epstein himself, because she was actually the one who brought the young girls and chose them from schools first. She was the one who chose them and brought them to him. The young girls used to trust her because she's a woman. Despite that, he's talking about a pardon for her. What happened in short, for those who didn't understand, is that the Department of Justice went to her and made a deal. They told her, "Listen, when the day comes for you to talk, do not mention Trump's name at all," and they gave her a few other names not to mention. In exchange, we'll take you to a much lighter prison, and maybe Trump will give you a pardon later. And she said, "Deal." They made a deal with her. If this thing doesn't clarify to you what's happening exactly, nothing else will. The government itself is covering for the biggest head in the pyramid. And the cover-up might go further than that, because a few days ago, a Fortnite account linked to Epstein and its username appeared in the emails, bought V-Bucks, okay? Those Fortnite coins. And not just that, this Fortnite account was logged in from Israel. Someone will say, well, is he an idiot? He's not an idiot to the point of exposing himself this much. Why wouldn't he just make a new account? Maybe he had rare skins. If you have rare skins in the game, would you open another account? Definitely not. And later, the official Fortnite account came out and said that this is a different person who changed his account name to Epstein as a prank. But of course they'd say that. But a day later, people discovered that Epstein's account in the game Rocket League was connected 3 days ago. And from where was it connected? Russia? No, Israel. The theory that he's alive started to spread after people began comparing pictures of his corpse that appeared in the files with his picture in reality, and they discovered that there are missing tattoos and the nose is not the same nose. And a drone flew over his island after his death and they saw someone with the same appearance and specifications, Epstein's height, sitting outside. And not just that, we found that the Department of Justice made Epstein's death report a day before he actually died. Meaning, they wrote his death report before the guy died. This guy, if he turned up alive, I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, because if every big head is trying to cover up the subject, it would be easy for them to smuggle him out since they turned off the cameras at the time of his suicide. But this case has just begun, and every day worse details are coming out than the first details. And I deliberately didn't put other details in this clip, the subject is truly ramified. Honestly, I don't want to come and tell you what's in the emails without explaining everything behind the subject. Like, for example, the subject that Epstein had a bank account where he named himself Bell, which is the devil against good. And the subject that China knew about Epstein from before and used him as a pressure card. 1,000 things. We'll go into more detail and more topics as soon as more details come out. If you want me to make another clip, let me know in the comments.